You're doing the intro.
Oh, all right. Oh, okay. All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Film Nerds Hour with your hosts, Noah Sweeto, and
Nathaniel Shoemaker.
we don't know what's up with him today.
It's supremely late. Get off my case.
Well, without further ado, we have a special treat of a movie here for you tonight that comes from the indie community. And for those who are familiar with the movie Turbo Kid, this may not come as a surprise to you if you kind of know those directors. The movie Summer of '84, which is an amazing indie film, in my opinion. It was very well done, very well paced, and an amazing soundtrack. And if you're like us over here who just watched Fright Night,
which we will review. We don't know when these are coming out.
Yeah, but we'll probably have it in the next episode. But if you like Fright Night or love Fright Night, this is definitely something to watch back to back. Yeah, it has a very similar kind of premise.
It's in the vein of Fright Night, Disturbia, Rear Window. Just that very the person who you're living in the
next door.
Yeah, you're living in the vicinity of, turns out, not the best person.
And it's very well done. Right down to its soundtrack, which is amazing how both Fright Night and Summer of '84 both seemed like good movies and ended up being amazing movies. Both with their visual effects and their suspense and build-up and soundtracks especially, respectively. So, right off the bat, there will be spoilers for this, so that way it's not a surprise. Please, if you have not seen this movie, please watch that before listening to this podcast, as it is something that you definitely need to watch.
Where can they watch it, Noah?
For sure on Amazon Prime. If you have Shudder or Shudder, it is a Shudder original. It's fantastic, as well as YouTube and Vudu and Google Play Movies. That may change as to whether it's free or in the future.
Yeah.
At the time of this video. Right now, as we're recording this, it is officially a rentable movie, but it is definitely worth the money. And if you love mystery, suspense, and 80s, it definitely runs in the vein and gives a great job of it. So,
yeah.
Without further ado, what do you think of the film?
I went in blind. The only thing I knew was the title. I think I might have looked up a trailer, but that was months ago. I really enjoyed it for what it was, It's not a perfect movie, but, I give them credit, because what kind of budget were they working with here?
Let me see if they have the budget on here, because that was small. They don't. I'd assume...
Did they have, an estimated thing? Are you on the wiki, or what are you on?
No, I'm kind of generally looking at it. I can look up the budget, though.
Yeah.
Because I know it was fairly small, because it is Shudder.
It's an indie film, yeah.
And, I mean, just looking at the way they got creative with Turbo Kid...
The directors, not Shudder.
Yeah. With the way they got creative with Turbo Kid... Excuse me.
Don't get too bored.
And, they really made that stretch, so that's definitely cool. I don't really see a budget on here. I would assume that's probably under $1 million, I'd have to say.
I would probably guess, yeah.
And it doesn't really require, so probably a couple thousand to...
I'd say $100,000.
$100,000 in that range to $1 million.
Not like they made the movie for $3,000.
Yeah, no, but definitely their talent is very well done.
Yeah.
As well.
Got some good... I recognize a few of these people in the movie.
Yeah, we have a slew of characters that are... we have Graham, Verker?
I think so.
Verker?
Could be Gaelic.
Yeah, it's hard to say his name, but he plays Davy Armstrong. We have Tiara Scovai as Nikki Kasab. These are some hard names, both characters and real names.
Makes them distinctive.
Judah Lewis, which is finally easy. Tommy Eaton. His nickname is Eats. And then we have.
He's the guy who's in the Babysitter movies.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure. Yeah, and he's in Christmas Chronicles and stuff like that.
No, actually, I think that's Judah Lewis, I believe, is. I thought that's who it was. Yeah, it's Judah. It's Judah who's in the Babysitter.
Oh, is Eats the bigger guy?
No.
Who's the bigger guy?
The bigger guy is Woody.
Oh, okay.
Who's played by Caleb Burby. Dale Woodworth, or his nickname is Woody, and then we also have Corey Guter Andrew as Curtis Faraday.
Who plays the main guy's dad?
Davey Armstrong. Randall Armstrong is played by Jason Gray Stanford.
Yeah, he's I know him best because he's more of a TV actor. He was in the show Monk for a number of years.
Yep,
it's a really great show.
He's also been in.
Sorry, are we boring you?
No, we're not.
No.
He was in Ninja Turtles: The Next Mutation, which I want to get my hands on.
Oh, that's the second one, right?
No, it's a series. Live action series.
Oh, right. With the female turtle.
Yes.
I remember now.
He was also in The Lucky Christmas, A Beautiful Mind, Grey's Anatomy, Flags of Our Fathers, Earth to Echo, and CIS, apparently, as well. So, he's been in quite a few things. The Mighty Kong, Bones.
Been around the block.
Yes. So, I recognized his face, though, too. I knew him from somewhere, so that was kind of cool.
Is there like a summary of the movie that you can read?
Yeah, I want to get through the characters quick, too. And then our other main actor, well, first off, we played the mom with Shauna Jonenson as Sheila Armstrong, and then Rich Summer as Wayne Mackey. And he hasn't been a whole lot, but he's a very good actor. He's very, very convincing.
Very convincing, yeah.
Very convincing at a very scary rate. So
yeah, he can be both kind and freak you the frick out.
Yeah, kind of like a Jack Nicholson vibe, definitely.
Well, it reminds
playing to that strength of.
It gives me a Robin Williams vibe, personally.
Robin Williams, or probably more Kathy Bates if you were going to compare it to psycho characters anyway.
Well, I mean, because Williams, he could literally play anything and make you feel any emotion. Like, Tear for Tear, I'm not sure if... He was definitely top 10 actors of his time. Because I'm talking about Robin Williams.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know.
Because have you ever seen 1 Hour Photo?
No. There's still quite a few Robin Williams.
Lord God. Holy crap, that movie. That messed with me. Because he works in a quote-unquote not Walmart, but it's a Walmart. And I saw it while I was working at Walmart, and I was like, what?
I have seen Angriest Man in Brooklyn, though, and for that one, he was... Oh, I can already see bloody eyes just by looking at it.
Yeah. Where he's doing that, yeah.
Yeah, that's not okay.
Yeah, it's Robin Williams. It's very effective.
So
if you couldn't tell by the title, Summer of '84 takes place in the summer of 1984.
Which I was doing on a slew bender of 80s inspired movies and the 80s movies when I was on Amazon Prime a while back.
Yeah, Super 8.
Yeah, and I got a Shudder subscription on Amazon Prime and I tried it out, and that was one of the movies that I had seen on a trailer. Mm-hmm. And so I was very anxious to try it out, and air. Ooh. What happened here? Is the mic still working?
Can you not hear it?
No, I cannot.
See if we missed any recording.
Should be working. Alright, sorry about that, guys. As I was saying, one of the things that this movie really did was it really, really impressed me.
Mm-hmm. Me too.
With its premise. And it's very, very well done build-up.
Yeah.
Never shy or boring for a second. Everything kind of had some significance. Even when it seemed a bit slower, there was still something to fill it in that made it very viewable and very watchable and helped you continue your experience. So it never really let you out of the ballpark.
Yeah.
what the movie was. And it didn't really stray away and go over the top with things that were just kind of bizarre and was kind of like, why was that in the movie?
Yeah, exactly.
Which is one of those things that you kind of find a lot with 80s inspired movies or TV shows. Stranger Things is another example of what really did the 80s well.
Mm-hmm.
Another kind of example, too, is The Void, which we'll definitely be covering on this channel as well. The Void is one of those things that actually did a great representation of the 80s, too, except the pacing wasn't as intense. So mm-hmm. I really have a deep favor for this film. And it's definitely one of those films where it's kind of like you're very surprised.
Yeah, for sure. I will say, because I think I had one gripe with this movie that I wanted to get out of the way. I'm not a big fan of like some of the dialogue at times between the group of kids, because it's very because it's giving me kind of It vibes, where like Richie in the newer It movie, like all he talks about is sex, and there are people who saw those movies and it's like, oh, I loved it because those kids talked exactly like how me and my friends talked, and it's like, maybe there's a reason they don't do that in movies. It's kind of annoying,
Yeah, I liked it because that was the first thing that I noticed, is that it was a group of 4 boys.
Yeah.
So I kind of already automatically expected it.
Yeah. I don't know. Maybe it's just me and I had a different childhood.
Sometimes it is. I think part of it, though, too, is like, you expect it with 80s movies. Those 80s movies a lot, I feel like it wasn't as annoying as it could have been. Like, for Richie, that's not to diss Finn Wolfhard or anything.
No, I love that guy. He's great.
It just was, it was too much. It was really overdone.
It was too much, yeah.
And if you know me personally, I'm all about crude jokes. I will make them all day, every day, for every little situation.
But it's like, people are dying. Like,
yeah, I wouldn't be the one sitting there like, oh, there's a serial killer, killer clown.
Well, like,
can I go fuck your mother or something?
Everybody has like their moment with the clown except for him at a point, and his reaction is, can only virgins shoot? Is this like a virgin only thing? Is that why I can't see any of this shit? And it's like, dude, they're having traumatic experiences that they're going to remember forever.
And I mean, I know that's like a funny thing, but eventually like shit like that gets annoying. Once in a while you need to have your characters be very serious, and that really did deliver in this movie. Yeah. I didn't feel like I felt like there were some parts where it was kind of like, oh, okay, you can stop, but it wasn't really annoying. It wasn't really...
Yeah. It was just the leather jacket wearing guy. He always made like blowjob jokes and stuff like that.
Yeah. And I mean, I feel like it was like my level.
Yeah. I feel like it would be true to... At the same time, I feel like it would be true to his character, though. Because you get the sense from his house that it's like, oh, he's known about any kind of thing from every kind of age,
Yeah, and I like the feeling that it didn't feel so, like, over-the-top annoying. It may have been annoying at times, but it wasn't really that very, like, oh my god, will you please fucking die already?
Shut up. Yeah.
Which, definitely we gotta talk about that book, slasher book, Clowns in a Cornfield. Mm-hmm. Because I'm excited about that.
Yeah.
That's a very good read. I'm going to pick up a first edition. By now I would have already picked it up. But
time travel.
Yeah. That's definitely something you need to read. I've heard nothing but good things about it, so I'm very anxious to get into it. And it's thanks to Nathaniel over here for getting me into books and making me want to spend all my money on books.
The more you read, the more your cognitive functions improve, which means you won't be blubbering around a convenience store at 70 going, where is my cat?
Maybe I want that.
Maybe I don't want that for you.
Well, if somebody hits me for frying pan, I'll come back to reality.
Because at this point...
I've been in coma for 10 years.
At this point, it seems very likely that if I have a roommate in an old folks' home, it's probably you.
Would be the worst roommate in the world.
No. You'd still be getting chicks. That apparently happens a lot in old folks' homes.
Yeah, well, they got nothing better to do, so...
Yeah, exactly. Well, it's that show 911 where, like, this guy had, like, a hyper form of, like, crabs or something on the call, and they were like, who have you slept with? And almost all the girls in the old folks' home raise their hand, and they're like, who have you slept with? And then everyone raises their hand.
So it's a whole swingers party in there.
That's what old folks' homes are.
So, what did the nurse do over there? I didn't give anybody a special sponge bath.
Yeah,
what are you talking about?
No staff. No pun intended with the staff, but no staff. It's usually just the old people.
Well, I think that might.
Others' rooms.
I think that might be considered elder abuse.
Yeah, it would be. 1,000%.
So, we'll get off that topic, as funny as that is.
Yeah, so summer of '84. Yeah, not that old people wanking is not hilarious.
I almost forget how this movie opens.
Oh yeah, because it's just like he's helping him carry something into his basement. You know?
Yes,
because he's the main character is a paperboy.
Yeah, Davy Armstrong is a paperboy. And he's on paperboy route. And that's when we first see him delivering papers and stuff, and kind of give an establishing shot of what his neighborhood's like. It's really just a mini suburb, but he's doing a narrative over it about how basically. That the most bizarre shit happens
in the burbs,
in the suburbs, yeah. And one of the things he says that you'd be surprised at the amount of serial killers. It's usually a serial killer lives next door to everybody or somebody.
So everyone has it's
a serial killer lives next to somebody.
A serial killer is somebody's neighbor.
Is always someone's neighbor, yeah.
Yeah. Everyone has a neighbor or something like that. Yeah.
And
we didn't write the movie.
Yeah. But it's an interesting quote to kind of think about like what could be going on in that neighbor's house, because there's always those times
keep you up at night, sure. Yeah. Well, yeah, he explains like you have no idea what's going on in those houses, and you can't know. Which
is kind of one of the funny things about Big Mouth when Jay's like, you ever wonder how many people are just fucking in their house?
Yeah.
But it is
the answer: everyone, all the time, everywhere.
Yeah, and it is a really interesting concept to think about what other neighbors are doing in your house, because you never know. They could be watching you, and that kind of, or they could be doing some really shady shit, and you wouldn't even know it.
Yeah.
Because
you see houses with like cameras everywhere, and you don't know.
Yeah. So I mean, it's a very good way to open the film, seeing kind of the neighborhood and him kind of just explaining, because it gives you that very, very calming feeling of kind of everything's normal but not quite right.
Yeah.
I think in a sense, and that's when we first see Davy meet Wayne Mackey, sorry, and we're just going to call him Mackey.
He doesn't meet him. He meets up with him. We meet him.
Meets up with him. We get to meet him and see that, and we learn that he's the one of the chief of police.
He's a cop.
Or he's a cop. Yeah, he's not the chief.
He's a cab.
One of the officer. And basically, as Davy's delivering his paper, he lets him know that today's payday.
Mm-hmm. He's got to pay him.
Yeah, which he's willing to do, but he also asks him if he can move down, help him move. What is it? I think it's a dresser, right?
Mm-hmm.
Down into his house and into his basement. And that's when we get like a kind of a view of Mackey's house, and we see a bunch of pictures on the wall, which says part of his.
He's making an amateur darkroom.
Yeah, we see a whole bunch of picture frames though of his family, and then. We go down into his basement, and that's where we see his amateur dark room, which is quite impressive to have your homemade dark room. It's something really cool to have. But already you can kind of tell that his basement's a little...
Yeah.
It's an old house, but it's very kind of too much in it.
Well, and I personally, because this is just me from that kind of standpoint, I wouldn't have a basement dark room. Because, you don't have any light exposure, but there's also not a lot of ventilation, depending, for the chemicals.
Yeah, and it's also just kind of...
creepy?
Yeah, creepy. Just seeing nothing but a red light.
Oh, yeah. Well, dark rooms are creepy in general now.
Well, yeah, we had one at our high school.
You guys had a dark room?
Yep.
God.
Yeah, if Cleo was here, I bet she'd agree.
Oh, God's sake. Yeah, we get it. I had a horrible high school experience with no budget.
Throwback to Class of Nukem I episode. I wish I could say that it was like E5 or E6.
Yeah. Oh, my God. Every 5 minutes of that episode. You guys had what? No. Really? Your food tasted okay? What? No.
Yeah, which I wish, I kind of missed some of that school pizza. So delicious. All sorts of stuff.
Yeah, we got ours from the prison, so...
We actually got ours, down here from the prison.
Yeah, that's where most high school lunches come from.
So,
It's the same lunch.
See, that's messed up, though.
I mean, in a high school, you kind of feel like a prisoner sometimes, depending on the
If you
class.
go to Blaine High School, you definitely feel like a prisoner because I was supposed to be a prisoner, I think, to my knowledge.
Oh, yeah, that's true. Well, I felt like a prisoner because of how many restrictions I had at my school. We couldn't hold hands, for God's sake.
Don't hold hands, you'll get pregnant.
Yeah, exactly. If you hold her hand too hard, she'll have triplets right now. And I'm like, what are you talking
okay.
about? I didn't learn that in the sex ed class you never taught me.
Right.
Yeah, that's bizarre to me.
Hey, our movie podcast review, it's a throwback to episode 5, Class of Nukem High.
That's right.
So,
Is
if you want to hear us pick it up, no, not yet.
It'll be up by the time this comes out.
Definitely. Well, I hope so. Otherwise, we got a real problem.
Someone died. No.
But yeah, so we get to see kind of what Mackey's basement looks like, which is a bit creepy. But one of the things that we have is we get to see this mysterious room that's in his basement in the corner.
It's got a padlock on it.
Got a padlock on it.
Which is red.
Yeah, and it's just very unnerving.
Really pops.
You know, because it pops out, and then you have the red room. So it's already creepy because, you know, it's an old basement. And if you've been in any old basement, I mean, my house is a bit older.
Yeah.
But our basement isn't quite as creepy, even in the middle. I think the only creepiest thing is when we hear our water heater refill in the middle of the night at 3 a.m. on the dot. And it's creepy as hell. Because it's 3 a.m.
You know it's coming?
Yeah, because it's loud.
Oh, wow.
Because sometimes when you're not listening at 3 a.m. and you walk past and all of a sudden you hear...
Oh, sure.
Really loud. It's freaky.
Why are you still up at 3 a.m. now?
For a lot of reasons. I don't have to explain myself to you. I'm a creature of the night.
You have to explain yourself.
I'm black. I'm a creature of the night, okay? It's because I'm black.
So yeah, basement dark.
But yeah, we see this lock, and as Mackey's trying to talk to Davey, he's just kind of blowing it off because he's more focused on what's behind that door, which, you know, naturally is curiosity. Because, you know, as a cop, too, just knowing your neighbor's a cop, you're all automatically wondering, well, what's behind that door?
Weapons, evidence.
Weapons, evidence, in a lot of cases, cocaine, drugs.
Sure.
Other stuff. But then he kind of snaps back into reality. He talks to Mackey. And then he gave him part of the money, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he gives him half of what he owes him. And then we also learn that Mackey, he kind of talks to him about how much Davey has grown.
Yeah, he's like, you got big, kid. And it's like,
yeah.
Yeah.
But what we also figure out is that Mackey's known Randall and Sheila Armstrong since...
his parents.
Before Davey was born. And he got to kind of grow up with him and see his parents kind of having him in a stroller and, you know, going around with him. So that's kind of nice.
Doesn't his dad work at the station, too?
No, his dad works on the paper, I believe.
Oh, okay.
Which is why Davey later says in the movie during one particular scene that he always gets to see the news first.
Oh.
Because I believe his dad works for the paper.
I thought it was just because he had a paper route.
No. Well, that too. I think Randall worked for the paper at least.
Okay. We didn't,
They guy really didn't establish what both Randall and Sheila did.
I mean, it's 84, so I assume since the dad is working, she probably didn't have a job. Probably a stay-at-home mom.
But I don't think she was there as much.
Well, I mean, it's summer. You know, you go out shopping to the Piggly Wiggly, you go to backyard parties in the suburbs. Like,
yeah, that's true. But
it's
I mean,
in the title.
Yeah. After that, though, after Davey leaves, we get to meet his friends, Tommy, Curtis, and Dale, or as we call them, Tommy, Curtis, and Woody, because they don't really call him Eats a whole lot.
Yeah, no.
So they're kind of some really cool characters, and the chemistry is automatically just very well done.
Yeah,
it feels like a true group of friends, and they're meeting in his room, if I remember, at the very first time.
Yeah.
Where's the clubhouse?
It's the clubhouse because they talk about.
That's right.
His dad's gonna tear it down.
Yeah, which is Tommy. So Tommy's backyard. Basically, he kind of comes from what we understand from a broken home. He's got a brother who's one of those kind of trying to be cool emo asshole type of kids of the 80s.
Well, it's also like that. I wouldn't say emo asshole. It's more like jock asshole because the first time we see him on screen, he's shirtless washing his car with a garden hose, and it's like, You don't need to be doing that. You're
Right.
just doing it so the ladies come by and see the abs and the cool car.
Yeah, exactly. So you can tell he's definitely competent because he's probably got a tiny cock, but you know.
He's a dish. He's a dish.
But yeah, just kind of judging by how his house is kind of run down, you can kind of tell, or it's kind of darker.
Yeah.
And then we kind of learn that he kind of comes from a broken home. Mm-hmm. So if I remember right, his parents are divorced too, right?
You hear them arguing, so I don't think they are.
No, I think he just has a broken home.
Yeah.
So poor Tommy, but he still has his friends, and they evidently they built this tree house for the four of them to hang out with, which his dad is talking about tearing down before the end of the summer. Which what was it to build?
I'm not sure. I think he was gonna build like a. You know what? I don't know.
I don't remember. It was kind of vague.
Maybe like
Well, they said it once. It was once, but it was something for work, I think, for some renovations and whatnot.
What did his dad do? Oh, were they gonna take the tree down altogether?
Yeah,
use the wood.
I think that was it. Yeah, to get more wood. So they're kind of debating back and forth about that because it's something that they've had ever since they were a little kid, and I'm pretty sure anybody who's had anything that's kind of been there, like, it doesn't even have to be a tree house. I mean, it's just if you had a little playhouse, or if your room is changing, it's something you just don't want to get rid of, or
change is hard when you're a kid because
it's where you have the most memories and where you feel the most comfortable. It's your space.
Yeah, depending on your age, the first time you move, it's like
yeah,
because everything's new, everything's different. You can't go down the street and find the same kid,
Yeah, and it's hard. So I can understand that. I can understand that even now. It'd be when I got my first car accident, it was really hard to let go of that car because it was just something I was very connected to. I was comfortable.
You spent a lot of hours in it, I'm sure.
Yeah, and it was very reliable. So that was kind of heartbreaking for me. It was hard to get a new car and just kind of be comfortable with it for a while because it was like definitely
feels gross.
It wasn't as in good a shape as my first car.
Yeah, it's the same with like getting a new job.
Yeah, it's very different trying to start all over again. You never quite get used to that, but yeah. So we're able to relate with it, and I think this treehouse doesn't play the biggest symbolism, but I think it plays a big sense of symbolism.
It definitely, because in the end of it, you do see like parts of it getting torn down, and it's a very much a symbolism of like, because
growth.
Yeah, none of you are really like. With what you went through, none of you are kids anymore. Like none of you are kids anymore.
which definitely emphasizes too with the kind of it vibe, which is something that I really appreciate. Is we get to spend a fair amount of time, not as much time, building up. I mean, the movie is an hour and 46 minutes, and that's with credits. So obviously, take a minute or two away for credit's sake. And chapter 1, the movie adaptation is about 2 hours and 14 minutes long. Mm-hmm. So we don't really. I mean, the thing that really comes down to too, and that's just because of the way the movie is. You don't really see the antagonist. You get a couple of scenes of him, but not as much as Pennywise.
You don't see him as an antagonist, really, as well.
Yeah, it's very hinted at, but we'll save that till the end for that big reveal. But it's very comfy. They did a great job, really, helping, develop these characters within a short amount of time, even by bringing them together, which is something kind of a little bit difficult to do, is to really help characters grow. You grow, and I think that's something, that's different when it comes to characters in movies. There's characters that are together, and kind of growing as a group,
right?
Not as individuals.
Exactly.
But I think given the stories and the dialogue that they're given, it's kind of nice because, it really gives you kind of insight to what these characters, what their pasts are. You learn a lot through their dialogue and their history with each other. Mm-hmm. So it makes them grow as a group of friends and as individuals, which I liked a lot. Their stories and kind of their history really unfolded and really brought you into the characters.
Yeah.
So kind of after that, did they head over to his house?
I think, well, no, because they start playing, what's that game they play?
Oh.
Oh, they do that before they even go into the treehouse, don't they? It's like... It's a game that you definitely...
No, it was after they play Ghost in the Graveyard.
You might know it as Ghost in the Graveyard.
Yeah, but they called it a specific thing. I'm trying to think of what the name, but they called it...
It's not militia. No.
No.
It's some military term.
Yeah.
But it's basically... It's definitely... It's a game you definitely couldn't play now.
Yeah, even when...
Those days are gone. Long gone.
I remember when I played Ghost in the Graveyard when I lived in Illinois for a while. That was always fun.
Yeah.
Because we were in an apartment complex. But yeah, nowadays, everybody's like, get off my lawn! And,
Exactly.
well, with everything going on, it's... Minus, like, the virus, it's still
a little more unnerving.
sketchy, yeah, to see people running through your yards. From a simpler time that we wish we could have been a part of.
Yeah, it's basically hide and seek, but the whole neighborhood, and it's at night.
Yeah, which is really nice.
Yeah, it's just... Yeah, because back in the day, you could climb onto your neighbor's roof and be like, hey, I heard you on the roof. You guys have fun? And it's like, yeah, like, cool.
Yeah. So, after they played that game, they kind of, we kind of learned of Davies, a little bit of his suspicion. Kind of, because he's kind of looking at, he's looking at Mackie's house kind of weird. Mm-hmm. And then after the game... they head up to Davy's room into his house, and that's when we really get our first glimpse as to what Davy thinks of Mackie kind of behind his back, and that is that he thinks that he has something to do with the murders and disappearances of these kids.
Yeah.
That have been disappearing all over kind of the state, but in the local area, and a little bit outwards of town. And I don't remember how many victims they said initially were missing.
It was a lot.
But it was a lot. It was like 20 or some odd people. And they were specifically young boys.
Yeah.
There wasn't any girls or anything else. They were specifically just younger boys.
It's just very unsettling.
Yeah, which was... And the range was like... I think it was like probably like 8 to 16.
12 to 16.
12 to 16, yeah. So it's a very... puberty-driven time period of age, so that was very unnerving to think about that too.
When a serial killer is specific about their target, that's when it gets scarier, because it's not random, which means they're thinking, and it's like
yeah, it's not just impulse. So
yeah, exactly.
Already that's sending a whole bunch of red flags, but I don't think they ever really give a specification. I think they give little hints as to why Davy thinks that Mackie is the serial killer. But we see him with binoculars just spying on his house. But he has this whole notion and keeps trying to convince his friends that Mackie is a serial killer and giving him a bunch of A, B, C, and D reasons why.
Yeah. Behavioral things he's noticed.
Yeah.
He's like, he goes jogging, or no, he goes biking at like
11 at night and stuff like that, and jogging and all that stuff. But
he's a cop, so he should know that that's not safe.
Which, in all fairness, does really kind of poke up the factor, because you think that a cop would not do that sort of thing, knowing that people are insecure. Mm-hmm. And it is a little bit weird for somebody who's in the law to easily pass it off as, oh, I'm going on a mission, or I'm going on a
little night ride.
Yeah. To kind of give it that type of feel. So the other kind of thing too with Davy is that his friends have known him. He's a big conspiracy theorist. He loves trying to solve these.
His room has a bunch of newspaper clippings on it, and they're like, I think one of them says at some point, like, "Are you sure you're not a serial killer?"
Yeah, and it's not just about Mackie. It's about a lot of things.
Yeah,
he's just a general conspiracy theorist, and we learn later too that he's been that way since he was about 12.
Sure.
Because I think he's about 15.
He's up there a little bit.
Yeah, he's like 14 or 15.
How old is the babysitter character?
I think she's about... She's got to be like... I mean, it's hard to say. I think she's got to be like at least 17 or 18. Because she's
going to college after that summer. So for sure 18, I'd say. Or maybe 19.
Yeah. So I believe Davy's about 15.
Really? because
like 14 or 15.
Well, they say 4 years before that, he had her as a babysitter, and like,
so
she would give him baths. So I feel like 11 is a little old for that. Don't you think?
Yeah, maybe.
Because you got to think of the age difference of them too, which is never directly stated. We're just taking context clues here.
Well, I think they've lived next door to each other for a long time though too.
That's fair.
What they said.
That's fair.
So, but I mean, I can
punch it in coordinates.
Yeah, he's 15.
Okay, yes.
Yep, he's 15. So and Nikki. Let's see. Nikki is. Well, if I can find it, you know, it would be nice. But obviously she's going off to college, so I'd say we're right that she's got to be at least 18.
Mm-hmm. Either that or about to turn 18.
Right. So going forward too with that, we see her changing one of. What is it that Davy notices her changing?
Yeah, with binoculars. You only see like her back.
Yeah, and she covers herself up at the front of her towel. Mm-hmm. But that doesn't excuse the fact that we got a little peeping Tom on our hands, and all the boys are sitting there like, oh,
they're all like, give me the binoculars.
Boobies!
Yeah.
And they're like, put it in your spank bank.
Oh, God.
And who's like, can you please not objectify her? Was it Woody?
It was the 80s.
Or was it Davey? Because our little Richie Tozier, Tommy, is definitely like, oh, yeah, that's so hot.
Yeah.
And,
he makes... who is it who he keeps making jokes about having sex with his mom?
Woody's mother.
Yeah. And that's the one thing that Woody's like, and he like almost hits him a few times. Like,
yeah, but I mean, one of the cheesiest and best lines is when he says, when when they see Nikki changing, he's like, if I was over there right now,
she'd be pregnant.
And I'm sitting there
and it's like very subtle and also what?
Whoa, okay, getting a little strong there, don't you think,
what
there,
a
buddy?
condom is? No.
So, you know, just boys being boys, I guess.
Question mark?
Control yourselves a bit.
Boys from the 80s being boys. I should hope kids nowadays are a little more mature.
Yeah. Well, there's a reason they're called boys and a reason we're called men.
Well, okay, let me rephrase. I'm pretty sure things like that are less accepted now.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Especially now that
Peeping Toms.
Everyone literally has a camera.
Well, that's for the G word to spy on us.
Mm-hmm. The G word, very subtle. They won't crack your code on that one, Captain.
Oh, whatever.
It's a very good argument. You are correct. Continue with your synopsis, Professor.
So kind of jumping through because I want to review the whole thing in its depth, but I think it's also kind of one of those things where it just kind of builds up. So I'm gonna kind of skip to some of the more key points.
Yeah, you're taking the helm. So.
It's really one of those things that you have to experience. Yeah. There's a lot of detail in this movie, and while we say that that it's very full, we don't mean it in the sense that it's kind of like The Stuff, and that's not just The Stuff. The Stuff had a lot, but it was very, very, very fast-paced and hard to keep with.
Yeah.
Summer of '84 is a fast-paced movie, but
it's a
slow burn and gives you a lot to take in.
Yeah, like we don't see many dead things.
It'd be like if Stephen King made movies as well as he made novels.
Exactly.
And not to say that he doesn't make his movies as well, but really, it's really descriptive.
Yeah.
Both visually and character-wise. This movie really gives you the slow burn, gives you the time to process it.
You know everything that's happening.
Yeah, and that's really good, especially for an indie movie. Really giving the perfect amount of time. But also granted that this did have 3 directors.
Yeah. 2 of them are married, correct?
Yeah, Anouk Wiesel, Francos Simard, and Joanne Carl Wiesel. So she's married to Anouk.
I thought Anouk was the girl.
Or yeah, Joanne is married to him. I'm sorry, these are weird names. I feel bad.
It's okay. You're not familiar with the country, so it's okay.
Yeah, but they're fabulous talent. And also watch Turbo Kid.
Fabulous.
Watch Turbo Kid.
Yes.
But
darling, watch
going
it. So
back to
colorful and rainbow. All right.
But what that's another thing that really makes this movie is just having 3 directors, because that's hard.
Yeah, it's hard to make that work.
It's hard to make just one director work, let alone with 2. So to have 3 consulting with each other, and
it's kind of also the same with like writers. Like you usually hear for scripts and stuff like that, the more people that wrote it, the less it kind of makes sense in a way. Would you say?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Because it's very because you have a lot of people tugging at what idea they're trying to get at.
But instead, let's do this. And if there's just 1 or 2 people, there's not that many conversations like that.
Which is why the director usually has a main helm, because it's the director's vision. You're giving the screenplay to him or her. You're giving it to them.
They're getting the story. They're making it come to life.
Yeah, and it's through their eyes.
Mm-hmm. And ears.
Yeah, so to have a bunch of people kind of pulling it apart and having their visions, it's usually not something that goes well, especially with 2 directors, unless they're close, like the Coen brothers or Phil Lord and Tim Miller.
Phil Lord and Tim Miller, yep.
Yeah, and the Russo brothers especially.
A lot of brothers, yeah.
Yeah, a lot of brothers are very close friends.
Yep.
Or what make those work. We're kind of skipping ahead, because we kind of, basically to give you the drift, we kind of have Davey getting his friends to get the idea that they are that Mackie is a serial killer, and they agree to help him. Mm-hmm. And kind of fast forwarding to the next day, we kind of have one scene where Mackie is offering popsicles to all these kids.
Yeah.
And a lot of them are younger boys, which kind of is suggested because at first it seems innocent enough. Yeah. He's just trying to be that nice neighbor that's like, popping up a beer, which, is still kind of questionable.
Yeah, sitting in a lawn chair.
Yeah, just being like, hey, kids, and then leaving it out in the street pit practically. Because Davey lives in a cul-de-sac.
Yeah.
So, not like the street where it's dangerous. But, he kind of puts it out there. Then walks up to his porch, kind of sits there, and he smiles for a bit. And we kind of get a slow
zoom,
slow push in on his face of his smile slowly turning into a snare, basically. And just kind of this absent, kind of angered expression. And it really, that with the sinister overtone of that, too, makes you very unsettled.
Yeah. For sure.
Yeah, and as we progress later that night, or I believe it was later that night, and as we progress, we have Davey and his friends kind of come up with a plan to kind of track Mackie's movement. Because what they notice is that Mackie is buying all these types of weird things. Like
he's buying a lot of dirt, shovels, pickaxes,
and there are a lot of questionable things with all these kids going missing, and for a police officer too.
Yeah, because why does a cop need that stuff?
Yeah, and at first he likes to play it off as his garden as he sees Davey. But one of the things that when Davey goes to collect the money from him, which the previous night. We had Woody and trying to think of the other kid's name. Curtis. Woody and Curtis tail Mackie as he goes on a jog.
Is it a jog or a bike ride?
It is a jog.
Okay.
He goes on a jog to a storage unit. Outdoor storage unit, in which he opens his garage, and that's where they find, what was it that they find in there?
He's got an extra car.
Yeah.
And that's where he's storing a bunch of the dirt and the pickaxes and the shovels.
Yeah, which is obviously very suspicious. Why do you have something that's so far away?
Yeah, why do you have an extra car there?
Yeah, which you have your squad car, which is like, okay, but why not have it? Because he has a garage too. It's kind of like, why isn't your car there if you're, you know?
Exactly.
So very questionable. And another note too is that to keep in mind is that Davey, Tommy, Curtis, and Woody are all keeping in communication.
They got big old
walkie-talkies. Yeah. Which they use during their Ghost in the Graveyard type game.
Mm-hmm.
So later that night, they end up putting up. Woody helps Davey put a walkie-talkie next to one of
the window of his bedroom.
Yeah, one of Mackie's windows to his bedroom, so they can kind of listen in here and there.
Yeah. Oh, and like, I think we buzzed over it a little bit. A lot of stuff happens with the girl who used to be his babysitter.
Yes. Nikki and Davey kind of start talking because there's one night where he is expecting one of his friends to come over after spying on Mackie and seeing him do some suspicious looking activities. And I think that's when he goes out for one of his jogs.
Yeah.
And Nikki comes over, which surprises Davey while his parents are out at dinner.
Everything involving her is a jump scare, and it's so unsettling.
Yeah, pretty much. But you see that there's some romance a little bit, because this has been, like, obviously the boys all crushed for the Peeping Tom.
If nothing else, there's familiarity and close friendship, because they've known each other for so long.
Between her and Davey,
yeah, and she's talking a lot about how her parents told her that they're getting a divorce, and she can't really talk to any of her friends.
Because none of her parents, they're kind of that happy couple. So, you know, being somebody whose parents have divorced, you know, it is a rough thing to kind of just go to be like, oh, yeah, you got such a happy family life. How do you expect to understand that? Where, you know, it's nice to have somebody, a friend, even if they're younger, to kind of just have somebody who will listen and have their best way to understand because they know you as a person.
Exactly.
So that's...
Talking to someone is always good.
Yeah, especially somebody you know. So that's very comforting to know that they have that kind of bond still. It's not too weird that, you know, she basically grew up with him, babysitting him.
Yep.
So we get a lot of those scenes doubled with them kind of looking for Mackie and whatnot. They're kind of seeing what he's up to. And then fast forward to the next night after we've gotten to the walkie-talkie incident while they're playing the Ghost in the Graveyard incident. After that night, we see Davey go over to collect the
walkie-talkie or check the range on it. No, okay.
Check the range on it, and he passes it off when Mackie comes out. The previous night before, as well as Woody and Davey have planted the walkie-talkie as they're trying to leave. Davey notices that Mackie's staring out his window. And sees him, and he freaks out and runs away. Then we cut to the next day where he's kind of over there and kind of worried about, you know, what Mackie will do in kind of testing the range. And then he sees Mackie come out. And obviously he's freaked out at this point because he's like, oh shit, does he know? Mackie goes, you know, oh, I know why you're over here. It's the money I owe you.
Exactly. So he's like, I got it. Hold on.
Yeah, I got it. Hold on. And he's like, you can come back with me to the backyard.
Which very unsettling.
Yeah, which is a lot of Davey's things is that he constantly wants Davey to come with him out of the site into his house.
Exactly. In
the backyard. And it really gives you that stranger danger vibe. And I think without like the concept of the murders, you'd really think that he might be a pedophile or something. It's a very eerie, you know, neighbor that's just a little too nice, but gives off a couple too many odd weird faces ticks. And weird ticks, yes. And that's definitely one of them. So, but Davey reluctantly follows him back to make sure it doesn't seem too suspicious as he saw him out there last night in front of his house. Which, you know, what Mackie says is he just passes it off as, oh yeah, I was just kind of watching you guys, so I assume that you were just having a fun time out there.
Exactly.
So no worries. Because he's got a big backyard, And I think he's got a couple of bushes and stuff back there because he's got a garden and stuff, whatnot. So it's a nice place to hide. So he's like, I understand. And obviously Davey trying to keep his composure together and everything.
Right.
But one thing that he notices when Mackie goes to grab his money is that there is a pit. But it is the exact shape of a body that you'd use to cover up at a cemetery where you'd lay fresh flowers. So this makes him automatically suspicious because it's not just the garden of flowers. It is slap dab in the middle
between
these flowers. Yeah. So it definitely makes it one of those things where you're like, okay, that is not right. Why? Right, who plants, sides to middle? So then we have Mackie who comes back, gives Davey the money, and offers to allow Davey to use some walkie-talkies for his game to give him kind of longer range.
Yeah, because he thinks he's using the little one.
Yeah, and he's like, that's perfectly okay. Because again, Mackie offers Davey to come to his house and go through it with him, which is very suspicious again.
Yeah.
And Davey is smart, says stranger danger, and already not trusting him is like, no, that's okay. When Mackie basically says, well, the offer still stands if you...
Yeah, if you ever change your mind, come over.
Yep, feel free to come over. So as Davey turns to walk out and leave, basically his walkie-talkie starts to interfere. He forgot to take it off kind of the testing mode. Starts to interfere and static out with the other walkie-talkie, which Mackie hears because he's just kind of sinisterly staring at him. And I mean, I think it's doubled up with the fact that you kind of already have a feeling that he knows what's up. Mm-hmm. Because this isn't the first time that he's caught kind of Davey or seen him kind of around his house and around his business, and also trying not to keep his composure. Because you could see Davey cracking a lot of these times eventually.
Yep. After
the first time that you see them in the beginning. So it definitely kind of implies that Davey knows what's up, or that Mackie knows what's up, especially because during the time that he went to his storage garage, Woody and them made some noise. So we also see him trying to figure out, and gets really close to catching them, but turns around and goes back to his garage. So he doesn't catch him at all, but definitely knows that something is up.
Exactly.
And something is a little weird. But he's obviously choosing to play it the cool route. And later that night, after basically Davey passes it off as these are some pretty crappy walkie-talkies.
Yeah.
Which obviously by now Mackie's like, he just agrees, but he's like, yeah, I know those. There's something up with that. Mm-hmm. Later that night, which I think is one of the first kidnappings. We see one of the kidnappings. I can't remember if that was this night or the previous night. I think it was the previous night.
And who is it? It's the sheriff's son? Chief of police's son?
Davey, or no, I think it's one of the officer's sons that disappears.
I think it's one of the main ones, the bald guy. Towards the end, yeah.
And that was the night that Woody and them went out to follow Mackie. Which is when he gets his car and everything, and they kind of leave before he gets back. Mm-hmm. But yeah, he ends up. We end up seeing this kid who's kind of walking in an alley, all home alone, and minding his own business, and that's when we get our very, very effective jump scares in this. By the way,
always
very well used, and they're not suspense driven at all. No. They just happen.
Yeah,
and it's very well done. But we basically get this kid who gets a bag over his head. We see a hand and a bag over his head and yanked off screen, which is terrifying and very unnerving. And that was the previous night. And then the night after Davey has tested out the walkie-talkie and got the money from Mackie, we see him with all of his friends, and he starts to look through binoculars at Davey's house. Or at Mackie's house, in which he sees Mackie staring back at him.
Yeah.
Through binoculars.
Well, and he moved the walkie-talkie.
Oh, did he move it?
Yeah. Because it was kind of on the edge of the window, but he moved it to the center. And it's at a place where it's like, yeah, someone had to have moved it purposefully.
Yeah, and that's when we see him straight back, which is the most horrifying thing ever. For me, it's little stuff like that shouldn't scare you, that terrifies me. Because it's like...
It gives you the eerie sense of, oh,
I'm fucked. He knows.
He knows. And he's just messing with me. Like...
Yeah, which definitely... Go on.
It's like a lion playing with its food or something, you know?
Yeah, which is definitely something that played to Misery, too.
Yeah.
What's the whole time? Does she know? Does she know? Is she fucking with me?
Exactly. Does she know I've been out of this room? Short answer, yeah.
Yes. And that's definitely
Check
something
out that episode.
that when Mackie comes out, that you're definitely like, oh.
Oh, I'm screwed.
Yeah. It's not...
And I've been screwed this whole time.
Yeah, and it's definitely just terrifying. But it's also terrifying just see him with the binoculars and then see his face. Mm-hmm. So stern, like, now I know you little shit.
Yeah, exactly.
And then that's when we realize that the walkie-talkie is taken into his house.
Mm-hmm.
After Davy drops down.
Yep.
Then kind of cutting a little bit forward, which we did see some previous other times that Davy had attempted to break into his house, which I think is the next day they attempt to break into his house, and they see Nikki there.
Or no, it's not his house. Someone else's house that she's cleaning.
Right.
It's like the next door, the other side of it.
Yeah, next door neighbors kind of spy on Mackie.
Yeah.
Isn't it?
Exactly. They wanted to get a different angle.
Yeah, and that's when they see Nikki, who...
She's cleaning?
Yeah, which we get a jump scare of her hand trying to turn on the light.
Yeah.
And all of them freak out, which automatically I'm like, shut the fuck up!
Exactly.
Don't be all screaming and be like, oh, why'd you do that?
Oh my god, we're gonna die! Like, yeah.
You know, Nikki's all calm about it, and she's like, you played it cool. Mm-hmm. Or she plays it cool, and she's like, yeah, why are you guys here? I'm taking care of the neighbor's cats while they're off at their cabin for a month so they don't die.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is usually an easy job, and which she was cleaning up because they knocked something over or they threw up. I think
one of those.
I think they knocked something over.
Yeah.
So she's cleaning that, and they kind of explain, you know, what they're doing, and that they want to get a better angle on Mackie. And one of the things that Nikki had stated in one of the previous nights talking to Davey is that she wanted him to be very careful and maybe call it off because she didn't want him to be caught and for it to be real and for him to be the next victim.
She cares about him. She
cares
wants him
about
to be
him
safe.
A lot. But basically, they kind of banter back and forth, kind of talk back and forth, and then it comes down to that Nikki says something about Davy that he got kissed or that he saw her breast or something. I can't remember.
Something to the effect of very vague, but because she's saying it, his friends can implicit anything.
Yeah, because she basically says he's more of a man
than you guys are. And they pause for a second, and then they're like, "Dude!" And they
right after she walks away, they're like, "Oh yeah," which Nikki's around the corner hearing, and she smiles because she's happy that she gave Davey that opportunity. So it's very nice for her to just be like, "That's nice. I want him to feel good." After that, though, we learn that we basically see that Mackie is working kind of in his backyard again, and Davey sneaks over and goes into his tool shed and finds a bloody shirt.
Yep. It's like an MTV old school shirt.
Yeah, which a little bit of time before we saw a little kid.
Yeah, we saw a photo of a kid in the guy's house, and then we saw that same kid on a milk carton that said missing.
Yes. Well, it wasn't in a picture. It was in through his window. Mm-hmm. We saw him with Mackie. And then he was shown missing a few days later, which is what makes Davey compelled to go search his big shed, because this is a big shed too.
Yeah.
And he finds that bloody shirt, and he goes to tell his parents, and to which his dad's response is,
we've known this guy longer than you've been alive. He's a good guy. He's a cop. Leave him alone.
All the cliches. And then to add injury to insult, like really just gouging and putting lemons and salt on one wound, is to basically tell him, oh yeah, we're going to have you go over and apologize. After Davey also dug up his garden to see what was up, if he had buried a body down there and whatnot. And one of the other things that Woody and Curtis had discovered is that there was a chemical formula written down, which they thought was Noah, but it was really NaOH for the chemical compound for acetic acid, wasn't it?
Yep.
That he basically had, and it was basically written on something he had bought from the hardware store.
Yeah.
Which they're asking, why do you need all this dirt and then acetic acid?
Yeah. Trying to melt some bones to bury, or what's going on, buddy?
As Curtis explains, it's very efficient at cutting through human skin and melting it down. So those three things that Davy runs to with his parents, basically they, add insult to injury, have him go over and apologize, to which Mackie plays it cool and says,
I get it. You're a kid. You want to have adventures.
Adventure in the summer.
Your imaginary gets carried away. It's all good. Yeah, whatever. I don't care.
He's like, is there anything we can do to make you more comfortable? In which Davy's dad is like, you don't need to explain yourself. But basically he tells Davy that the kid that was in his house.
It was my nephew.
It was his nephew.
His sister's kid, and he cut himself, and that's why there's blood on the shirt.
Yeah, he probably cut himself, which he makes that he didn't even see it.
Yeah.
Which makes it more suspicious, like...
Then why would that kid just leave his shirt there, and how did you not know?
Yeah, it's like, you're his uncle, and he's he's more a little kid. You take care of that.
Yeah, and he's like, offers to call his sister, and...
Yeah, which, he does the next day. After the kids apologize,
the main guy's parents are gone.
Davy's dad sends his friends home.
And he
then
tells
gives
all
his
their
parents
parents,
a call.
yeah.
And then the next night they're going down to their town festival.
Yeah. Well, you missed when he comes over when Davy's the only one there.
Before that, we have Mackie come over and to Davy's house and kind of explain that, I there's no hard feelings or anything like that. It's perfectly okay. I understand.
If you want, I can talk to your parents and see if they'll decrease your grounding or something.
Yep. Into which Davy says, no, that's perfectly okay.
Yeah.
But he's like, did you still want me to call over to my sister?
No, he asks, hey, you offered to call your sister's house yesterday.
Yes.
Can you do that?
And he says yes. And he's already ready to come to the house.
And he's like, you just stay here, I'll get the phone. And the second he's out of shot, the guy takes a few steps in the house.
Yeah, which he's looking around, which you'd think for being neighbors, you wouldn't be looking so...
Yeah.
Even with the house change, you wouldn't think that you're just going to be kind of like... With everything going on, too, like, you wouldn't think that you just step into the kid's house.
No. God, no.
So that makes Davey visibly uncomfortable, into which... he dials the number in for Mackie to call, into which there's no response.
Yeah.
And he asks, do you want me to come back and we can call later? She's walking out the door.
Come by the house, yeah.
Yeah, and which is another thing, which is like, why do you want me to come by the house again?
Yeah, why do you keep wanting me to come over to your house, dude?
Yeah. And Davey is smart and says no. And from there, after Mackie leaves and he closes the door, he calls the phone operator.
To see what number was dialed last.
Because obviously you can't just look it up on your smartphone.
Yeah. No, different time, guys.
Yeah. But
he also couldn't take a picture with that phone.
Yes. Basically calls the operator and asks what the last number was, writes it down, and then realizes that is Mackie's phone.
He called his own house.
Yeah. Which, obviously, why there was no answer.
Mm-hmm.
And then this definitely sets off the final red herrings for Davey, into which he calls up all his friends, who are very reluctant, except for Woody, who still believes in his friend.
It's his best friend. He still trusts him.
Yeah, and Davey asks all
Everyone
his
else
friends...
is like, F you, you're crazy.
Yes. But they reluctantly decide to go along, so Curtis and Tommy end up going down to the fair, the town festival.
One of them goes to the fair, the other stays at the bus stop.
Oh, yeah, to see if Davey's...
Because he's like, you watch him while he's at the fair.
Curtis watch him while he's at the fair.
You sit here and
Tommy.
See if the car comes past.
And Woody
and we'll watch outside the house.
Yep.
While I'm in the house. And it's very like, we'll have him covered on 3 fronts, and one of you is bound to know where he is.
Yep. And to which Nikki shows up and decides to help Davey out to not let him go this alone.
When they're at house, yeah.
Yeah, and Woody decides that it'd be better to not let his friend go in there in case he needs help.
Mm-hmm. So he holds the camera.
Yeah, and he says, which is a really touching thing because it really shows how much Woody trusts his friend and how much he cares for him. Because he says before they go in, wait, you think I'm going to let my best friend go in a serial killer's house all alone?
Exactly. He's just a good guy. Because you see him earlier taking care of his mom who works 36 hours, and it's like, you're just a nice
Who's
guy.
struggling as a single mother. Yeah, he's a very, very good kid. Very, very
Heart
big
of gold.
heart.
Heart of gold.
Yes. And after that, we see him, Nikki, and Davey all end up going in and exploring Mackey's house, into which Curtis sees Mackey with a bunch of the police force on the dock, the brand new built dock, into which they unveil the brand new dock garden.
Yeah, and he's like, he walkies him and he's like, that's why he had all the shovel, that's why he had the dirt, he planted a buttload of flowers, I'm out, you're on your own.
Yeah, which is really, really dickish, but kind of understandable.
Yeah.
Because granted the fact that, that they're basically just completely forgetting that he had hydrofluoric acid. Mm-hmm. Which is like, that doesn't explain.
It's literally they would still be helping him and all still be on board with this if they didn't get caught. Or if he didn't tell his parents and they didn't rat him out. Like. Yeah.
Into which Curtis goes up to Tommy, walks back, tells him that's a bunch of bullshit.
Yeah.
And he says that Tommy says his parents are fighting again and whatnot, and is upset. And Curtis asks him if he wants some company. So they end up
stay at my house tonight. Yeah.
Yeah. Into which they leave the bus stop, which leaves Davey and Nikki and Woody all on their own. Nikki says, "Well, that may not be true. So while we're here, why don't we just go look in the basement just to be extra sure?"
Yeah.
Which they finally unlatch that door.
Because he's been practicing picking locks with a hairpin this whole movie.
Yeah, and another thing is, too, that they also, beforehand with this plan, Woody asks how they plan to document this with the proof, and to which, like we stated earlier, that Davey's dad works at the news in the paper company. So he has a big camera, so they take the camera with them, and Woody's the one who is filming.
They got the light on as well.
And they end up in this child's room.
Yeah.
Which they ask from a baseball, too. Like, is this Mackey's room? And then they find another locked door in which they...
The baseball's signed 57, and it's like, the houses weren't built for another something years after.
Is what Nikki says, yeah.
Yeah, so...
So they end up finding this other door, which they go into, which leads to a bathroom.
Yeah, and there's a bunch of pictures... when they move the curtain.
Yep, there's a bunch of pictures when they move the traditional bathtub curtains, and they're all hung up of this one kid. Which already suspicious. And then we get one of the most horrifying images, which was very realistically done. We see a pool of blood and a human body of a child, of the person who's in the photo, with halfway of his face
through melting, yeah.
Yeah, with half of his face down to the bone and the rest still dissolving.
Yeah.
And then we get a kid who grabs Davey's ankle.
We see a hand grab an ankle.
That's been duct taped together, 2 hands, and he's begging for help.
Yeah, and obviously, it's the kid who got grabbed before, and it's the son of a cop. And...
Who's obviously been drugged and beaten because he's so weak at that point.
Yeah, or starved at the very least.
Yeah. So we have Davey who frees him, brings him back up. The 3 of them bring him back up, and they go right to the police station. Don't even bullshit with his parents, and his parents end up showing up there, and they show the chief and everybody on the police force.
Yep. They're like, go to his house.
Woody's mom is there. Nikki's parents are there. Davey's parents, and the chief is like, "This is fucking sick. Go get this son of a bitch."
Yeah, yeah.
So which all the cops go to Mackey's house.
He's like, "You should be proud of your son. Without him, my son would be dead right now."
Yeah, and to which, as they should be, Davey's parents are very sorry. Mm-hmm. And to which Davey's kind of like, "Well, fuck you, because you didn't listen, and I gave you all the signs. You didn't listen
in the first place, man.
And if you wouldn't have listened to me, if I wouldn't have done what I did, that kid would have been dead."
Yeah, so maybe listen to me next time.
Yeah. So basically all the police are swarming over at Mackey's house across the street. Woody has decided they've decided that Woody should spend the night. Mm-hmm. just till his mom is off work, just for safety purposes, obviously.
Yeah,
So
hang out.
Yeah, and it seems like the end of the movie, everything's going fine.
They're outside. They're right next to a crime scene, so.
Yeah, but we got the cops there, which makes you feel secure that people are finally taking it seriously and they're investigating into it.
Yeah.
However, we're told also that Mackie has not been found.
Mm-hmm. And then you see the kids lie down, and
they go to sleep.
It starts to fade almost, so you think, oh, it's the end of the movie.
Yeah.
But then you go through the hallway, and then slowly the attic door starts to move from inside the attic, and I just had the thought of, no.
And then we see the stair come down, and 2 feet,
yeah.
2 boots come down the stair slowly.
And then
to reveal
see it's him.
Mackie, who off-screen puts chloroform on, or silently puts Woody to sleep. And then Davey wakes up at the last minute, to which he covers his mouth and nose and puts him to sleep as well.
Yeah. And then they both wake up gagged and tied in the police cruiser. And yeah, where do they find out they are?
They're in the middle of the woods.
Well, it's like an island as well.
Yeah,
they run from one end and there's water, and then they run to another area and there's just more water.
Yeah, I think it's the island on the edge of the town.
Yeah. One way out.
One way out to drive back. And they're freaking out, and then we see Mackie hit the glass and break the windshield or start cracking the windshield of the police car.
He lets the door little slide open a bit, which is almost a taunting of I want to play, run,
Yeah, and that's when he comes on the other side of the window, thumps on it, and gets Davey and them to start running. Mm-hmm. And then after that, we see Davey and Woody, after they've untied themselves too in the car, they've gone back to untie themselves for their hands at least, and freed themselves from their gags. Mm-hmm. They start to run and go hide. They end up getting separated, which I think is easier to kind of split up so they...
Yeah. Well, he distracts him and has the other guy run back.
Yeah. Into which Mackie surprises Davey and shoves a knife into his leg, so he's incapacitated.
Yeah, and then he goes after the other kid.
After he goes for Woody, and Woody can hear Davey screaming for him to keep moving, that
but
Mackie's
stops,
on him.
Yeah.
But Woody's already freaked out, so he runs into the clearing to kind of get by the police car to see if there's a chance
that he can get the keys and drive off.
Yeah, which we see Mackie body slam him to the ground.
Yeah, he side checks him.
Yeah, and then hops behind him, pulls up his head, and then slits his throat open.
And he almost hugs him. It's very... This actor played disturbing very well.
Yeah, and it's one of those things that's very hard to fucking believe. He just killed a kid.
Yeah.
But he also...
The actor was 24, but he just killed a kid.
Yeah. But... yeah, it's just so heartbreaking. Out of nowhere, because you're did he really just kill one of the people that was, just trying to be...
Well, yeah.
So Davey stumbles out of the woods, realizes Woody's dead.
Well, and it's also what he was saying to him before. He said, I can't die, man. My mom needs me. So it's very much also oh, God,
how is your mom going to react? She's doing all this for both of you, and how is she going to continue
you're
on?
Dead,
Yeah, so it was very heartbreaking. It makes you hate fucking Mackie that much more.
Yeah,
Jeepers,
you didn't already.
Jeepers Creepers level.
Mm-hmm.
What you hate with the creeper at the end of that movie, which...
Yeah. Well, how he feels.
But that didn't make the movie good. That made it... Well, it made it good, but not, for me, Jeepers Creepers, seeing the ending that they chose was, holy shit. But this one was, holy shit, I don't even, am interested in Mackie. I want to see him fucking dead now. Mm-hmm. For sure. No question. But Davey comes, and that's when Mackie grabs him and basically says, I want to fucking kill you so bad.
Yeah, but because he's you ruined my life. You took my life away from me.
Forced me out of my home.
Yeah, but killing you would be too good for you or something like that.
It would be too easy.
Mm-hmm.
I want you. You've spent so much time thinking about me. And now I want you to keep thinking about me. So every single time you look over your shoulder, you're always going to be wondering if that's the day I'm going to get you. And I'm going to kill you.
Because he prefaces, he's going to leave. And one of those days he's going to find him. And he's going to kill him at any point in his life.
Yeah, but he said, I want you to suffer. I want you to wonder every single day until that point if that person or shadow or whoever you think that I'm back, that it's me. Until one day it actually is.
Until one day you're right.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Into which is the most horrifying fucking thing in the world. Then he tosses him onto the ground, hops in his police car, and drives away.
Leaves him with his dead friend.
Yeah, which Davey just lays there and passes out. Mm-hmm. And then we see...
he, crawls because his leg is hurt, and somebody finds him.
He's one of the road. Island keepers, I think, finds him.
Yeah.
And brings him up into his truck. And as they're leaving, we see the police car burning. That Mackey's abandoned it.
Yep.
And God knows where he is by now.
Exactly.
The time frame is very unclear, too, as to how long Davey was out.
Mm-hmm. Could have been hours.
Yeah. So basically, the police swat the island, do whatever else, and then we cut to Davey, who's on his bike route again. Tommy's brother is still a dickwad. Mm-hmm. And they have a big bush sign in front of their house. We also see Tommy and Curtis, throwing pieces of the treehouse into the front yard.
Yeah.
And Davey kind of ignores them.
He reiterates the same monologue too.
Yeah, in a more serious matter now.
Yeah. And it's like his friend's house is sold and...
Yeah. Which, really what it comes down to, with that symbolism too, is for that treehouse is that the way I see it...
childhood.
That was their childhood and their growth. And now there is only 3 of them left.
Yeah. Their fantasy is gone. Now it's only reality.
And the fact that I think, personally, I think that Tommy and Curtis blame themselves, which they should.
Because both of us, they should.
I'm sorry, but they were really dicks. Given all the evidence and everything that they had, they could have saved another life if they would have just.
If all of them were sleeping over, no way he could have gotten them all.
Yeah, he would have had to have 4. One of them would have screamed to wake up the parents, Davey's parents.
100%.
So because of that reason,
yes, their fault.
It is their fault, and I really hope they blame themselves for that. It shouldn't just be, one of the things that Davey has to hold in and believe that is his fault for.
Because kid, it's not.
Yeah. So
yeah.
And that's pretty much.
That's summer of '84.
84. I really like the ending. It really leaves the open interpretation of. There is no happy endings all the time.
Yeah. And it also leaves that ambiguity of even though the movie's over, and I don't imagine these directors would make a sequel.
Nope, they already said they do not want to make it. Yeah. They think that their ending is perfect.
Yeah. But that's why the ending's perfect. Because the story itself, it's not over. Story's not over. You know what I mean? They don't need to make another sequel, but, that kid still has to live with the idea that at any point, at any hour, at any day, he could just be killed.
Yeah, which is traumatizing. Mm-hmm. Or to think that if he grows up to have a family, that his kids are going to be in danger, or his wife.
Exactly, and that's just going to make him a nervous wreck forever.
Yeah, so it really mentally fucks him, and I almost want to say that he probably ended up like Andrew from Whiplash, even if he would have had the idea of, having success. Mm-hmm. Would he ever be the same? He just lost his best friend.
Exactly.
So I really think that, if Mackie didn't kill him, he probably killed himself.
Exactly. The torture is killing him.
Couldn't live with the anticipation of that might happen. And who knows, that could be Mackie's plan all along.
Yeah.
One other thing to note, too, that we glanced over is when Nikki and Woody and Davey are all looking in his house, the pictures on Mackie's wall of his house are not
his family.
Of his family. They are of every last victim that he has claimed. And that wall is filled to the fucking brim. There's got 30 or 40 photos.
And there's a picture of him there, too, giving the implication that he would be next.
Yeah, and they're all these children are with their families, too. Mm-hmm. So that makes it even more terrifying, that he almost does a Dexter.
Yeah, very much so.
But overall, this movie was just very well done in its suspense and putting the pieces together, and it did it in such a unique way because every last thing was in plain sight.
Exactly. Not enough people know about this movie that should.
Yeah, it is
100%.
And I definitely say if you love Dexter, because this is just so well done.
Mm-hmm.
It's so out in plain sight, and that's what Dexter did so well. Everything that Dexter did was pretty much in plain sight.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he was a lethal weapon. He could have killed anybody at any moment. Probably still made it work. But yeah, it's very, very great 80s feel and a very great progression.
Yeah. Good time all around. Well, not a good time, but you know what I mean.
A very good watch.
Yeah.
Not just a popcorn movie.
Good story.
It's definitely a great story. Something I definitely recommend.
Do yourself a favor, put your phone away and pay attention because you need to.
Yeah, it's definitely one of those things that you need to watch completely through in order to embrace. So,
yeah.
Well, without further ado,
that's gonna wrap it. I think
that's gonna wrap it for this episode. Please go check it out. Very great movie. And we will see you guys in the next episode. Take care of yourselves and be safe out there.
Yep. I'm Nathaniel Shoemaker,
and I'm Noah Sweeto, and this has been Film Nerds Hour. So long, everyone.
Bye bye.